Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our CaptureCast webinar, Reach, Recruit, and Support Prospective First-Generation College Students Using Digital Content. My name is Tabitha. I'm our Director of Digital Marketing at Capture, and I'm joined today by Tiana Antonio, Paid Digital Media Specialist at Capture.
Hi, pleasure to join the webinar. Today we'll be discussing ways to reach, recruit, and support first-generation college students such as myself. These students often face unique barriers when beginning their college experience, such as their college application and admissions journey and throughout. And it's important to colleges to be prepared with the resources to support these first-generation students by meeting them where they are in messaging and resources tailored to their unique experiences.
All right, before we jump in, a little bit about Capture and who we are. It is our mission to make every interaction count. We help higher education institutions make personalized, data-driven, timely, and measured connections with prospective students and donors. We do this through best-in-class marketing solution delivered by a team of higher education experts and informed by the industry's only behavioral intelligence platform. Uh, Today's agenda is as follows. We'll begin by discussing Tiana's firsthand experiences as a first-generation college student, the barriers she's faced, and the resources she used to succeed as a graduate. Then we'll look at the top pain points for the first-generation college students and how to support their journey through digital media. Tiana, diving right in, as a first-generation college student, what was your experience in the early stages and the beginning of your college application journey?
Yeah, I believe in the early stages, it was a very confusing process to understand the timeline of knowing when you should start looking at colleges, when you should start applying, when the deadlines are, especially for the application, FAFSA, and scholarships. I also thought that there was very limited resources to connecting first generation students to colleges, especially if you're out of high school who may not be offering those resources as well.
Definitely, those seem like similar problems across the board for first-generation college students. Did you have any mentors, counselors, or family members who supported you through that process, and how did they help?
So I am very grateful because when I was in high school, I was in a college access program that helped a lot of the pain points that we'll talk about later. And those things that it helped with was scheduling college tours, creating a list of different colleges ranging from my safety net schools up into my high risk applications, understanding FAFSA and navigating the different types of college applications. And I do feel like those are a lot of areas where first generation students aren't always getting the resources that they need and where the gap is between connecting them to colleges and universities.
For sure, for sure. How did you approach the financial aspects of applying to college, such as understanding the FAFSA, scholarships, application fees, and tuition costs?
Yeah, I think for me personally, and among other first generation students, this was the hardest part of the college application process, especially when you're looking at colleges and the fees are so daunting. College alone is so expensive, and then having to determine all the different documents you needed to fill out FAFSA, understanding what the tuition costs were and scholarship application deadlines doesn't make it any easier. I was grateful to have a support system that I talked about earlier that helped break it down into more manageable pieces. But I still remember working with my parents to fill out FAFSA and them being confused with what we needed from the tax documents and myself also being confused. And that just creates a lot more stress that doesn't make you feel motivated to apply to colleges. However, there were schools and online resources that go through the step-by-step process, and having that laid out in such a easy way does make the process a lot better.
Excellent. Outside of those financial barriers, how did you prepare academically for college applications? And were there any specific challenges related to being a first-gen student?
So to be honest, my grades were great, but my test scores were not that good. And it was really nice when schools were very transparent with test scores, whether that was through their advertising or on their website. And it can be very intimidating to apply to schools not knowing if you're going to get in. So when the transparency starts at the very beginning, you automatically feel very supported from those schools. And they take away those fears that you have. Also, more communication, I feel like, on what high school courses are needed is very important. I know when I was applying to schools, I was eliminated for a lot of California schools, colleges, and universities because I didn't take a high school elective that was needed. And that was really disappointing my senior year knowing that I was eliminated from one state to apply to. So I think transparency from the very beginning with money, scores, GPA is very essential.
Definitely, for sure. Thank you for sharing that. How did your family's expectations and understanding of college influence your application process?
Yeah, for my family at least, and I believe all families, they have an expectation that you'll follow a path that's different than theirs, especially from first generation students where their parents immigrated from another country and they went straight into working. And there's this expectation that you'll go to school, you'll get a career, and you'll build a different life for yourself that's easier than theirs. However, it's hard to start a life for yourself when your parents are expecting things from you that they didn't do themselves and are unsure how to help you. So when I started this process, I didn't know that you had to pay for college applications. I just thought that they were free because you want to go to that college. And my parents also weren't aware of those things. But when you have high school counselors telling you, hey, you should be applying to 8 colleges, it can seem kind of scary, especially knowing that you may not get into that college and you're spending your parents' hard earned money or your money applying to all of these different schools. And at the end of the day, you might come back with a rejection letter. So I think knowing that there's a barrier at the beginning of that college career, it can be very scary and hard to start with that process. So again, it goes back to just being transparent within the marketing, your within your marketing communication to really tailor it to it first generation students.
Excellent. Thank you. What resources helped you after the application process, and what resources do you wish were available to you throughout the process?
Yeah, so my school did a very good job, I feel like, relating to first generation students and giving them resources before the application process as well as starting college. We had TRIO, which is a first generation college program to help you. We had an academic center. We also had a career center that helped me while I was in college. And my particular college advertised a lot about a program that would fly you from Las Vegas to Reno, which is where I went to school. And I think the most important key takeaway from that was not only did they have this program, but they also advertised this program to people who really needed it and would benefit from it. And I think that that was so beneficial and is a really good stepping stone for other colleges and universities. And I think a way that even colleges and universities can really expand what they're doing is making sure that once a student starts their college, that there's check-ins to help them get through that process, which is something that I wish that I had done when I was starting college.
Excellent. Thank you. So, we talked a lot about the application process. What challenges did you face when you started college, and how did your campus support you in those issues?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of times first generation students stay close to home, which makes a lot of sense for given reasons. But I was still in state for college, except my college was 8 hours away driving. And although I was still in state, I did feel really homesick, and that can cause you, and it caused me to feel disconnected, isolated, and depressed just because I went to school. There wasn't a lot of people that looked like me. There wasn't a lot of people that I shared similar backgrounds with, and I was far away from my family. But it was really important that my campus did a good job of coordinating on-campus events to not only support a fun environment, but also professional growth within my major and different programs, as well as leaving on campus in the dorms and having dorms create events that were similar for professional growth, as well as having a fun environment and getting to meet people similar to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing, Tiana. I do think a lot of the pain points that you just mentioned and barriers and experiences are really similar to what students in similar situations and first gen students are experiencing as well. Some of the big barriers I heard from you were difficulties in understanding the application steps and timeline, financial constraints and misunderstanding, finding the right support system for students and their parents, support in school with internships, career advice and resources, and assuring students are given opportunities to feel connected and not feel isolated. So let's dive into our digital strategies to support first generation college students through these barriers. Let's start with our first barrier, navigating the application process and timeline. One of the main barriers you discussed, Tiana, was confusion with the initial application process itself and understanding timelines and deadlines. Based on these pain points listed on this slide that encompass and process, what digital strategies can support these pain points?
Yeah, so I would say for this one, it comes down to meeting the students right where they are and what they know. And you can do this with optimized landing pages with clear and straightforward language and copy. And what I mean by that is having a landing page that directs students to the links that they need to be, direct students to financial aid links, campus life, meeting with an academic advisor, really pointing them to the resources that they need strictly for first generation students. I think something else that important is audience segmentation through keyword research. So tailoring first generation college pain points to keyword research or something of first generation scholarships available. Those will really meet students where they are. Something else is personalized email campaigns, yet again, that are linking students back to a counselor at a college to get answers to their questions that students may feel nervous or scared to ask. So, really directing them straight to someone that will help them. Something that we do is we do countdown timers to alert upcoming deadlines on admissions landing pages. This is really great. That way, if someone is confused on what that application process looks like, when they go to a website and they see these pop up or they get an email about this, they'll know exactly how many days left. And if you link back to a counselor, they can meet with those counselors and figure out how can they work together to get their application submitted by that deadline. Next is sending step-by-step guides via email on how to get started on applications or fill out financial forms and important deadlines. This is so important because it's one thing to tell someone, hey, I'm advertising to you, here is the college application, but it's another thing to give them a step-by-step process. If this is something that they've never seen before, something that their parents have never seen before, really walking them through that process and alleviating the barrier of knowing that everyone knows what you know. And then lastly, digital ads leading to opportunities to connect directly to an admissions counselor. This one is just so important. You want to put your first generation students in front of who they need to speak to because they have so many questions, so many fears that when you create that gap, when you eliminate that gap and put them directly in who they need to talk to through these strategies, you're essentially creating a space that is more inclusive for them.
Awesome. Thank you. Those are great strategies, Tiana. So, according to Niche, when embarking on their college application process, first gen students are more interested in hearing tips and advice related to enrollment and adjusting to college, which means tailoring that content and delivering clear and informative content is absolutely key. Our next is financial constraints. So 80% of first generation college students needed to hear about financial aid and affordability as compared to 71% of their peers. This includes clear information for FAFSA, application fees, deadlines and dues, post-acceptance fees, scholarship applications, campus tours, and visits. What are some digital strategies to support these financial constraints?
Yeah, going back to earlier, I definitely feel like this is one of the toughest parts about applying to college is definitely the cost because money is everything to first generation students. And digital strategies that you can use to support this is segmented targeting and Google Ads. So going back to those keywords, but also looking at audience segments, really how can you reach these students in Google display campaigns, for example? Again, countdown advertisements. So focusing on when are deadlines for FAFSA, when are deadlines for scholarship applications. Yield campaigns for explaining next steps for deposits and other fees are going to be so important. I know when I was starting school, I didn't even know you had to deposit. I thought, okay, I applied, I got in, I will see them when the start date is. No, you have to deposit or send a deposit. And I think that's so important to make sure that after a student applies, you're meeting them where they are and giving them that information. Next is retargeting campaigns off of financial aid pages to contact a financial aid counselor. So if you see that someone is spending a lot of time on your financial aid pages, admissions pages, redirecting them to a landing page that you optimize and created for first generation students to connect them to the financial aid counselor to help them with that. Campaigns that direct users to schools who have options for virtual tours and info sessions. This is so important because not everyone has the money or resources to travel to a school, maybe across the US. But if you have virtual tours and those virtual info sessions, allowing students to sign up for those to learn more about your school. Also, waived application language and digital ads, so important. This allows students to know that there is a school out there for them that they may not have to pay an application for, and they will be more enticed to apply because of that. So making sure that you highlight that as a feature or benefit for your university. And lastly, ads with specific information on scholarship opportunities for first gen college students. Really tailoring your language to first gen students. That way they know this marketing is for them and these resources are for them. And then if we look to the right, this is an example of how you can tailor one of your digital ads to meet these.
Thank you. Next up is support systems, which, as we spoke about earlier when we were talking about your experience, are sometimes a really big barrier. Many first generation college students lack a strong support system to guide them through the application and acceptance process for college. Some unique barriers include parents who are unfamiliar with the process, balancing work and school, and thoughts of a viability of attending a four-year degree program. Tiana, what strategies do you find that support these specific support system pain points?
Yeah, so I think the first one, and a lot of these are going to share similar ones, but creating and optimizing landing pages, not only tailored to first generation students, but also tailored to parents to inform them on resources available for their student. I think it's great to talk to students, but we also should be talking to parents to get them informed on what this process that their student is going through is like. Also, something that's important, what I want to point out is first gen students were twice as likely to be considering a 2-year institution than a 4-year institution. And that could just be due to a lot of reasons, fear of commitment to a 4-year degree or not knowing what the next 4 years of their life is going to look like. So, really having specific campaigns that highlight flexible schedules and 2-year degree programs can really benefit you. Next is geo-targeting campaigns that target areas with high density of first-gen students and schools in close proximity. A lot of these students will apply to schools that maybe are an hour or so away from their home. So if you're doing geo-targeted campaigns, you will be reaching first-generation students and offering them those resources and support. And then lastly, sending testimonials from first-gen students that links back to them, connecting them with the counselor. This one is so important if a first gen student is able to hear from someone that went through the same struggles as them, is in college, and will connect them to a counselor to get even more additional resources.
Thank you. Our next big barrier is career networking. So, according to Nietzsche, understanding career outcomes is more important to first generation college students. What happens working toward graduation to set them up for career success? And what resources do they have to support them? How can we use digital strategies to support these students as they transition into career planning in their college career?
This makes so much sense. I mean, if you're spending, let's say 10,000 a year on your schooling, that's a $40,000 degree. It makes sense that at the end of it, you want to come out into a career that's going to benefit you with experience, um, essentially money, and really support your future from there on out. So things that are going to be good in this is having clear and straightforward language, of course, having ads that clearly define career expectations, such as salary and jobs available within the career, such as the example we see on the right, a median salary of 95K. This really helps make it transparent on what does the industry look like when a student graduates with this major or program. Ads that explain course load for a certain major, and this kind of falls into support system, knowing what will your course load look like, how can you manage that, and then lastly, information on colleges that offer internships as part of their course load slash major. Sometimes it's very hard for first generation students to reach out and ask for help and find internships and experience. But if you have a program where an internship is built into your major or your program, that's something to talk about in your ads because that really relates to what first generation students are looking for.
Excellent. Thank you. Super helpful information. Our last bullet point here is that college life can sometimes seem really daunting for first generation college students, especially when they don't have parental support or experience to really help them navigate through that life change. A majority of first generation college students opt to stay close to campus. What supports can colleges and universities offer to help with feelings of disconnect from family, isolation, and how can they help engage students who live on campus versus at home and commute?
Yeah, so something that we really want to focus on is email targeting campaigns that list different centers on campus that will offer centers such as academic, career, trio information. And this can also be done through Google campaigns with site links and callouts. Those are so important just to know that if someone is either living on campus or they're commuting from home to campus, that they have resources on campus once they start that they can visit and receive help through. Brand awareness campaigns that highlight campus life tailored to first generation college students is very important. Just giving them that information from the get go. And then lastly, assuring campaigns tailored to first generation students are served within a close proximity to campus. Again, going back to finding areas with a high density of first generation students and letting them know what does college look like for a first generation student once they start college, they have applied, they're enrolled, and how can they be supported throughout their whole college journey.
Excellent. Thank you.
Perfect. So then something I want to end with is a statistic. In 2020, 54% of undergraduate populations are first generation college students. It's not only important to reach them during the application process, but to support them throughout their college journey. Here are some key takeaways to ensure that you're reaching out and supporting more than half of your student population. One, personalization is crucial to reaching first generation college students. Talk to your audience directly, make it clear that you're providing resource for them and support. List what the barriers are and tell them how you're breaking down those barriers. Really make it personalized to them. That way a first generation student knows that this information is for them. Second, understand the unique barriers that first generation students face. A lot of these barriers, not all of your students on campus will face, but when you can start to understand what those barriers are, you can make targeting and you could add additional support that will help navigate them through these. Third, the more clear and concise communication, the better. It's always better to over communicate than under communicate. There's never too much communication of resources that you can give to first generation students to help them through this process. Just be as clear as you can and offer way more information than you think you may need to. And lastly, don't assume everyone knows what you know. The process may be easy for you, but for a first generation student, it's confusing, it's scary. Remember to be inclusive and reach for prospective students where they are.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us, Tiana, today to talk about your experience and share all of these really helpful strategies. Thank you, everyone else who joined us today. You can find more information about us on our website at capturehighered.com or find us on social media. And we look forward to the next CaptureCast webinar.